So my dad asked me to do this reflection and I had no idea what to say. I've never really done anything like this, so I didn't know what I was supposed to talk about. He gave me a copy of a reflection someone else had written to give me an idea of what I could talk about. The reflection was about Mary at the tomb after Jesus had been crucified and raised from the dead. It spoke about how she wept for her Lord, who she thought was dead. But what caught me was one line in the story. She, Mary, turned to leave and saw someone standing there. It was Jesus. She didn't recognize him. Jesus was standing right in front of Mary. He even spoke to her and she still didn't know who he was. How many times has that happened to us? How many times does God speak and we don't recognize him? In 1 Samuel 3, God calls to Samuel 3 times before Samuel replies. Every time God called his name, Samuel went to Eli asking, "Did you call me?" After the 3rd time Samuel woke him, Eli realized it was God who was calling the boy. Eli told Samuel to go back to sleep, and the next time he was called, to stay where he was and answer. So Samuel went back to bed, and sure enough, the Lord came and called as before, "Samuel, Samuel." And Samuel replied, "Speak, your servant is listening." These are 2 people in the Bible, one in the Old Testament living under the Old Covenant, and one in the New Testament living under the New Covenant. One a young boy and one a grown woman, who lived in the presence of God. Samuel grew up in the temple and Mary followed Jesus. You'd think that they would recognize his voice when he calls, but they didn't. How often are we like that? That when God calls and we don't recognize his voice? I know I've asked God time and again why he doesn't speak to me, why I can never hear his voice. Samuel and Mary's story, along with others in the Bible, like the woman at the well, the men on the road to Emmaus, reminded me and opened my eyes to the fact that God is speaking to me. I don't recognize his voice because, like Mary and Samuel, I'm not expecting to hear him when he talks to me. We make our lives so busy, work, family, friends, church, that we don't take time to stop and listen to what God is saying. We want him to follow our schedule, to speak when we are ready to listen. But God doesn't work that way. He has a habit of messing up our carefully planned schedules and doing things his way. Holy Saturday is a time of silence. It's the quiet between the cries of the crucifixion and the celebration of the resurrection. A time where people mourned and God's own Son was sent down to hell to take the punishment that was meant for us. This day we have the opportunity to really listen to what God has got to say, especially with the situation we're in. We're being forced to stop. We can't go outside, we are isolated. So take this time, listen, learn, and spend time with God. So when the morning comes and Jesus rises, he only needs to say your name once before you answer. "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening."